Good morning and welcome back to the Vision Alignment, and actually it's now called the BounceBack Leadership Show, where we talk so much about how important it is to bounce back from our setbacks. We have 7 different steps that we go through, and we're going to find out a little bit about crisis management from our guest today and the steps that she has for us to go through as well. So we have a lot of good stuff happening. We have so many different opportunities to learn from people. It's just phenomenal. So I'm just so grateful that you're all here with us. And I want to make sure that if there's ever anything that I can do, just let me know. If there's ever a guest that you want to have on, let me know. We have a great guest that's coming on next week, and not as good as this one. But I wanted to make sure that you stick around until the end to hear more about that. So, without any further ado, I'll bring on our guest today. And our guest today is none other than, if I can find my mouse, it's none other than Mary Kelly. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning. So excited to be with you and the whole team here today.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being on.
It's my pleasure. This is going to be a great show.
Absolutely. So, Mary, tell me, when is your first recollection of having a setback you need to bounce back from?
So I'm going to tell you and your listening audience that the biggest setback I had in my life was losing my husband to cancer. And we'd been married for 15 years. He was young. I was young. We had a lifetime together. And in a very short amount of time, all of that disappeared.
Wow. If you want to hear more, stay right there. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning.
And we have one of our friends on, Ted Legal. It says hello this morning.
Good morning, Ted. Great to see you.
So let's see. Ted has something else to say here. Anyway. Yeah. Anyways, good to have Ted on. Good, and Ted and Randy. Anyway, wanted to just ask you a little bit more about how you bounced back from that setback.
So losing a spouse, I think, is horrific for anybody. I think the only thing that even comes close to that as being worse in terms of personal loss is the death of a child. I think that's got to be worse, and I wouldn't know. And thankfully for that. So I have to tell you that when you get into that place, what struck me, and you got to remember, I was used to dealing with crisis, challenge, and change. I saw people react in the first Gulf War, the second Gulf War, 9/11. I was military for 26 years. So I was used to dealing with big level crises, challenges, and changes. And I have to share with you and your audience that losing a spouse hits you in a totally different way. What was interesting about this is some of my friends, in an effort to make me feel better, I think, said, "Oh, I know exactly how you feel. I lost my cat last year." Okay, it's not the same. I'm just saying it's not the same. Anyway, what I found out in the bounce and how. So what happens is when you have, I think, any kind of loss, so whether that loss is the loss of a business, a physical loss where all of a sudden you can't use a certain part of your body the way you would like to or the way you thought you should. And the older I get, the more I think I really should start running again, and then as soon as, I'll run 10 steps and then I'm like, ow, my ankle. And then I'm like, oh, if only my ankle was better, I'd run more. Sometimes we use losses as an excuse, and we can't do that. Because you can only play the hand you're dealt, and you know that too. And I think a lot of people don't understand that not everybody's hands look equal, but we also don't know the hands that some people are playing. Everybody's got something. Everybody's got a challenge. And the fact that some people make it look easier than others doesn't discount the struggle. So what I wanted to share with you and your group today was, for me, what I found when I walked out of the hospital that day. I looked around and people were just going about their business. Like, people were buying coffee and having lunch and walking their dogs and skateboarding. And I was like, oh my goodness, the rest of the world has continued on and my world has stopped. And I thought, how can this be? The rest of the world should stop because I'm having a crisis. I'm having this loss. And it took me a while to realize, the rest of the world's going to keep going, and you got to keep going too. So what does that look like, and how does that manifest? And I mapped out, for crisis, challenge, and change, I mapped out the 6 stages that I think people go through. Now, this is not the grief stages. This is my own set of stages that I've witnessed people go through when they are faced with a problem, an issue. And then I've got some steps to bounce back on that. Any questions so far?
Yeah, I'm dying. I have my pen in hand. I want to write. What the 6 stages are.
Okay. So I think the first stage in any crisis, challenge, or change, like let's say you get a bad diagnosis, or your friend's kid's in an auto accident, or you lose somebody, it's, oh no, that you reject it outright. Oh no, the rejection stage. And then you move from there into the recognition stage that, okay, what do I do? I'm going to you very quickly move to the place to mitigate the negative circumstances. Okay, what do I need to do? Do I need to go pick up your other kids from school? Do I need to go feed your dog? Do I need to, how do I put a Band-Aid fix on the problem? It's a very short term, stop the immediate bleeding, and then we can work on the big issues. But most people, when they go to recognize other people in a crisis, they give them a Band-Aid fix. Oh, okay, well, do you need me to bring dinner over? It's super nice. It doesn't solve the problem, but it's super nice. And then they kind of stop there, because for them, they did what they could, and then they kind of remove themselves from your situation, which, you know what? That's perfectly fine. In the workplace, when we watch people go through COVID, I watch leaders try to do Band-Aid fixes, and then they didn't know what else to do to help their people get through the crisis of COVID. And what happened then is, we go through the recognition stage. Got it. There's a problem, and here's a Band-Aid fix. Then stage 3 is the realization stage. The realization stage is, oh, I have to make permanent changes. This is going to go on for years. This problem is not going to go away. In the Midwest, when somebody dies, we bring them casseroles. Jeannie Robertson would have baked, her 7-Up pound cake. So we do these things that help people in that moment. But when you get into stage 3, which is the realization stage, you have to realize you got to step it up. And that means more effort, more leadership. If you're in a leadership position, it means more leadership more often, with more specific communication, making it very clear what you need people to do. So in my situation, for example, there were people who would come to the hospital to visit, and everybody always says the same thing in a crisis: is there anything I can do to help? Which is lovely, and they're never expecting you to task them back. Well, I'm military, so if you say, is there anything I can do to help? I might give you something to do. And in this particular case, I needed a phone charger. My phone charger had died, and I needed a phone charger. So I said, yeah, I need you to go to the AT&T store, the T-Mobile store, or whatever it was, and get me a new phone charger. And they were like, what? And I was like, here's money, go do this. And they went, oh, okay. So some people don't expect direction. And I'm here to tell you that when you need guidance or direction or a little bit of help, it's okay to ask for that help. That happens in that realization stage. And then in stage 4 of a crisis, challenge, or change, it's we've got this. resolute. We resolve to support each other. So let's say in the crisis of COVID, it may have looked like, oh no, wait, we've got this national pandemic and our businesses are being destroyed. And then the second stage of the recognition is like, well, that's okay. It's kind of like just like a flu. It'll be fine. And then in the realization stage, it was, we would mitigate that. We'd say, well, I can work from home. I can work in my sweatpants. It'll be fine. And then we realize this is going to go on for years and we have to step it up. We have to change our technology. We have to change how we approach people. We have to change how we reach out to our workforces and our teams. And then we would coalesce people and say, we can do this. We can rally together. See, these first four stages, and this happens when people experience any kind of loss or crisis, it's very myopic. It's all about me. It's about me, my job, my grief, my family, my dog, my homeschooling, my house. It's about me. So those first four stages are very myopic. It's circle the wagons. It's control what you can control. It's because you're desperately trying to protect what you can protect. And it's very normal. And so if you look at people and you say, oh, they've spent 3 years locked in their own house, they're trying to protect what they can protect. And most people don't want to necessarily be in those myopic stages, but some people kind of like it. They like the idea that they get to focus just on them. As leaders, we have to recognize that many people are still in those first four stages of a crisis, challenge, or change. And we have to help them move into stage 5, which is the new reality, understanding, hey, this is your new reality. And you may not like it, and you didn't ask for it, but this is the hand you get to play. Understanding the variables you have and what you can do with them is critical to moving into the new realignment phase. And in the new realignment phase for, say, a personal loss, it's how does this change everything I have to do moving forward? On the leadership side, it's how does this change how I support my people? Where is my strategic leadership? How do I reallocate my resources so that I can move forward in the best possible way? How do I stay focused when, frankly, it's really hard? And Brian, I remember the first 3 months after my husband died, I was a mess. It took everything I had just to take care of my dogs, and I'd have to think about, oh gosh, get in the shower. And I'd have to think really hard about getting in the shower. And then I'd have to get in the shower. And everything just seemed to take so long because I was grieving from a mental and spiritual and physical place. Like my body shut down. Things were just not going well. And I remembered at the time, thinking, wow, this must be what depression is like. And you need to remember what this is like, because a lot of people live this way their whole lives. And it is easy when you're faced with a death or a really tough diagnosis or really tough crisis, it is easy to allow that place of being myopic to morph into the downward spiral of depression. And it happens to a lot of people, and it happened to me. And so I dutifully went to a doctor, and he said, well, how long ago was it? And I said, well, 3 months. He's like, well, you should be over it right now. Here's some, meds. And I thought, well, I don't think that's going to be helpful. I think I probably have the right to be sad. But there's part of my brain that was like, okay, how long can you be sad? And by the way, being sad and being myopic means you still have to be kind to other people. There are a few times when my responses to some people who are maybe not being appropriate, not my doctor, but a few other people faced with a challenging situation, that normal Mary would have handled it a little bit more differently than grieving Mary. And grieving Mary did not necessarily handle it that well. Like you can't, and yeah, there were a few people who didn't, on a good day, even when Mary wasn't grieving, their responses were not great, and they probably would have warranted a correction, kind of like a dog who's biting somebody. I would have warranted a correction, but I overreacted on a few of those. Not very many, but a few. I'm not very proud of that. So I remember thinking, how do I then move into this different space? And a few things really helped me, and it might help some of your listeners. So first, there's late night radio. The late night radio person said, wherever you are, you're 2 steps ahead of somebody else. So now I'm yelling at the radio. I'm like, you don't understand. I'm not 2 steps ahead of anybody. And I was like, wait a second. There's somebody who lost somebody yesterday. There's somebody who's only days into this, and I'm 3 months into this. There's other people. Oh, I am ahead of some people. Oh. And then I was like, huh, then what do you do about it? And and I thought, well, you NASCAR it. You bump draft. What you do is you get behind somebody else and you give them that push forward. And I have to tell you, Brian, that means everything because when you can then help other people, you are on the road to being where you need to be. And so the important part about my 6 stages of a crisis, challenge, or change is once you get beyond the first 4 stages, now you're not focused on you. Now you're focused on other people. And when you're focused on other people, you get out of your own headspace, you get out of your own depression, you get out of the poor woe is me, and you start being more productive, not just for the people around you, but for yourself. See, I think when we're focused on other people, we're better. And I've seen this again in extreme situations in the military. When people are focused on themselves, the outcome is not great. When they're focused on others, the outcome is great.
Wow, that makes me think of my own situation and how I've gone through this whole process, and I want to make sure that I'm helping other people. It almost seems like I'm in the fifth stage, if you will, and we haven't gone to the 6 or 7 yet. But I mean, I'm so thankful that I'm at that stage as opposed to being 2 steps back. So
Exactly. And I think, for a lot of people, the confidence of resiliency comes from doing, not thinking. Somebody can't cheer for you and go, Brian, it's going to be okay. You can do it. No, the confidence comes from you actually getting out there and doing it. In the Navy, we have to jump off a 10-meter tower to show that you can jump off a ship. Okay, fine. So the problem isn't the 10 meters that you're jumping from the platform to the top of the water. The problem is when you look down, you see the bottom of the pool. You don't see the surface of the water. And that adds another 30 or 40 feet. So the fear factor is magnified because you're seeing this distance that is much larger than what it actually looks like. And it's scary. And a lot of people have never jumped from that. I certainly had never done that. And you're looking at this thinking, I wonder if I can do it. And the whole time you're climbing the tower, you're thinking, am I going to do it? Because you're not sure if you're going to do it. You're just not sure. And then all of a sudden you get up there and you're scared and everybody around you is scared. And by the way, fear and uncertainty spreads. It's a contagion. So what you need is somebody to go, folks, stop looking at the bottom, look at the surface of the water, do it like I do. And then they jump and you're like, oh, they're confident and they didn't die. They're fine. And then they go, and it's really fun. And you're like, oh, wait, this can be fun. And all of a sudden in my case, the guy on the other side of the platform was a guy I knew from high school. And he's just this adorable, good-looking man. I mean, in high school, I just looked at him. I was like, oh, he's so cute, And we're supposed to be jumping in pairs, and he's going to be there. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to let him, think that I wussed out on this, that I couldn't do it. So I looked over at him. And I was like, okay, we're going to do this. I was thinking, I'm not sure I'm going to do this, and we both jumped. And so years later, it's our 25th reunion at the Naval Academy. And I told him, I was like, Jason, I need to tell you that you're one of the big reasons I did the tower jump. And I said, because I did not want you going back and telling your mama that I chickened out. And he said, Mary, I feel the same way about you. And the thing is once you do it once, you're like, oh, I can do this. Confidence happens from the doing. So then they're like, do it again. I was like, yeah, I can do it again. Now it's going to be fun. See, so the fear goes away when you take action. And I think, especially in a crisis, challenge, or change, it's not just the fear that goes away, it's the uncertainty that goes away. And all of a sudden, when you're able to take the right action, and when that right action is helping you and other people, all of a sudden your path changes. And now you're heading in the place where you need to be going.
Wow, that's so awesome. And one of our friends online here, I hit the wrong button. One of our friends here says greetings, and he's right there with us when it comes to accepting the challenge and looking at the challenge, looking at the crisis, and understanding that you can do it. Like everybody has something. So your something at that point was getting off the platform and getting in the water. So,
Right. And what people don't also sometimes, you think you've got your own challenges, so you're focused on that. But you don't realize that for other people, they haven't tackled that challenge yet. So I remember when I'm a professor back at the Naval Academy, and some of my students were worried about the tower jump. And I dutifully showed up and I said, look, I said, I will climb up there and do it with you. I said, nobody wants to see this in a bathing suit anymore. But if you need me and I showed up, I was like, look, you can do it. And I know you can do it. And I'll tell you why, because I did it and you're better than me. And they were like, what? I'm like, you're better than me. And even I could do it. So sometimes in your head, you kind of need that. Well, wait a minute. They're not as good as me. They're not as talented. They don't have all this educate. They don't have, and all of a sudden, sometimes we need that comparison. This sounds mean, but it's not. You look at somebody else and go, wait a minute, they did it. If they can do it, I can do it.
right.
And there's part of that people say, well, comparing yourself to others isn't healthy. I think it's really healthy. My closest competition in our business are my best friends because they push me to be better. And sometimes they'll land a really great gig. And I'm like, oh, they did it. Maybe I can do it too. Like there's that element that I think is really helpful. And I know you've got your 7 steps to coping with a crisis, challenge, or change. And as you know, being military, I either make an acronym out of it, I'm going to number it, or I make everything start with the same letter of the alphabet. So my stages of a crisis all begin with the letter R. I don't know if you caught that. And it's
No.
the protection stage, recognition, realization, resolution, reality, and realignment. When I talk about dealing with a crisis, challenge, or change, I use the acronym PIVOT. And I know we're all sick to death of the word pivot, but it works for my purposes, so I'm using it. And the pivot is an acronym. The P, of course, is remind yourself and the people around you of your purpose, your higher purpose. You wake up every single day, and if you're like, oh God, I just have to survive the day, hang on. What's your real purpose for being here? Why are you on the planet? Like, why are we doing what we do? Why do you go to work? Remind people that they are part of something bigger than themselves. And sometimes you need to remind yourself, hey, I'm part of something bigger than myself, and other people need what I do. Help people see that purpose. The I in pivot is wake up with the intent to inspire and influence people every single day in the best way possible. And when you're just slogging through and barely able to get out of bed, that's a hard thing to think about. But other people need us to show up and inspire and influence other people. Now, the V is assessing the volatility of the people around you. Back when I had a lot of people working for me in the Navy, I would sometimes do that management thing by walking around, the MBO thing, management by walking around,
Right.
MBO. And I would walk around and I go, hey, how you doing? Fine, good, great. Hey, how you doing? Fine, good, great. Hey, how and I'd go back to my office and think everything was great. And boy, was I wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't help me at all assess where people are with a volatile situation. So a much better thing to do in my mind, and I teach my teams this, and my audiences, is I say on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being absolutely fantastic, couldn't be better, and 1 being, oh, I'm having a rough day. Where are you? And it's a whole different question. And they're like, I'm a 7. Okay, what would get you up to an 8 or a 9? Well, I'd really like this client to say yes or sign this contract. Okay, good. Is there something I can do to help you with that? No, I think I'm okay. All right, fine. But if they say I'm a 3, I'm a 4, I'm a 2, whoa, that's all stop. Okay, what is going on? We've got resources to help if you're really in an extreme situation. Is there something you want to strategize on? Is there something you want to talk through? It changes your leadership and your approach to the people around you so you can better tailor your response. And then the O in pivot is find the opportunities. And this sometimes, again, when you're mired in that dark place, it's hard to see the opportunity. It's hard to see where you need to go next. But the reality is, there's always opportunity for people who are looking to serve others. There's always opportunity. People need us. People need our talents, skills, knowledge, and abilities. And we've got to show up with that, with the intent to help people when they need us the most in the best way possible. This doesn't mean being opportunistic. It means helping people, seeing the opportunity and being able to help when they need that. And then the T, right? I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And then the T is making sure you and the people around you have the tools, techniques, and tactics you need in order to move forward. So sometimes that means, hey, listen to a podcast that gets your butt in gear. Sometimes that means getting a resource that you're like, oh yeah, this is going to help me map out my day. What I needed in the very worst days was I needed little baby steps. And I learned that when you are confronted by a big challenge or a tough situation, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. Sometimes you can't see what steps you need to take to get there. So you have to break things down into much smaller chunks and work forward. There was a moment where I was sitting on the couch and I thought, I have to empty the dishwasher. And I couldn't even get the energy to get off the couch. And I thought, okay, let me break this down. And you know me, I'm pretty high energy most days and I wake up pretty darn cheerful. And for me to be in that place was rough. And I remember thinking, okay, here's what I have to do. I have to move to the edge of the couch. I have to stand up. I have to walk to the, like I had to break it down in a little baby steps. I have to open the dishwasher. I have to pull out the bottom drawer. And if I could just do the forks, if I could just put the forks in the drawer, that would be okay. Now, when you think about something that none of us even think about, empty the dishwasher, sure, you don't even think about it. And I had to really break it down because my brain was and my body was so paralyzed into this inactivity of sadness and grief that I could barely move. And I know that that is what depression feels like to a lot of people. I know that that's what happens when a lot of people get bad news. So we have to help people by breaking it down. And part of that for me was working through checklists. Okay, you make checklists. So I know I've been talking a long time, and what came out of my husband's situation was I needed to break things down into checklists for me. So I started making all these checklists for everything that I had to do. And this became the book, the manual, which is called In Case of Emergency, Break Glass. It's on Amazon, and it's Hi, You Could Die, You Probably Will. So you should get your stuff together. You should get your important papers together, and you need to get it organized. And this is what this looks like. And it makes it fill in the blank. It makes it easy for people who are maybe struggling, or maybe they're going to lose somebody, or maybe they're not sure about their own health issues. And it breaks it down. It's all about, and it starts with all about me, because that's where myopic things start. And then it's what do other people need to know for them to step in and help me if and when things get really rough. And that whole book, it to me, it's I mean, I do leadership work and I help people with profit growth and all of that. But I think that's really the work that I do that's the most important, because when somebody dies and you've got this amazing book of material and you know where to go to find everything, it relieves so much stress on the rest of the family and there's clear direction. And that's what we have to do. We have to watch out for other people.
Wow. There is so much learning and so many lessons that we've gotten from you today. I mean, this has been phenomenal. We have not scratched the surface on what you have to offer. I mean, I feel like there's so much more that we can go into, so much deeper. Would you be willing to come back?
Oh, of course. I love you. This is great. And anything I can do to help your people,
Awesome.
I will do that.
Awesome. That's great. And I think our listeners would really, really appreciate that. So we'll figure out a time. If you would hang out in the green room for me, and then we'll come back and we'll have a further discussion and we'll talk for dates.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Mary. And again, I have to find my mouse, so this is a hard thing. All right. Thanks. Wow. What a treat. Oh, I don't even know where to begin. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, yeah, we're definitely going to have Mary come back on. We're going to dig deeper into some of those things. We're going to make sure that we provide more value to you. And really, that's what it's all about. It's all about you at this point. So next week, we have a special guest coming on. Her name is Amber Hurdle. And Amber Hurdle, she's phenomenal. So really, really looking forward to having her on next Monday. We're going to continue. We are going to continue to just change your life. and make things so much better for you. That's really what we want to do. And if there's ever anything else that I can do and help, I want to do that. So just remember, I appreciate all of you. And as always, keep one eye